Well, hello there, Miss Amber Duncan. How are you today?
I'm good, Cami. So nice to be with you this morning.
Well, I'm super excited, and for those that are watching and viewing in with us today, and for even you, this is a brand new channel for me. This is called How Does She Do It? Like, what on earth is happening over there? How is she doing all the things? And you were one of the first people that came to mind when I thought about how am I going to, how am I going to build out this channel? Who am I going to interview? Because for me, when I was building my career, I didn't have a lot of women as models that were out there fiercely
Mhm.
driven, building a business, creating income, supporting their families, and extremely committed to their family and their home life. And so that's what today's all about. And so I wanted to bring you on here because you've done a lot of things, and we'll get into that here in a minute. But who is Amber? Amber, introduce yourself. Who are you?
Oh, well, I'm honored to be a part of this because I love more than anything just to sit and talk with women and empower and encourage. So thank you so much for that. I am a mom of five kids. I am a wife. I am a serial entrepreneur. I've done several things throughout my life. But, I don't really think there's a way to sum up everything, but I just really have taken pride in the fact I try to show up every day authentically myself. There's nothing off the table. I'm an eight on the Enneagram, so that just gives you a little bit of background of me. I'm not scared of anything. I'm very much a risk taker. But, I'm a college dropout. I lived in government housing as a single mom for a long time. So this isn't something that I've walked into easily, Cami. And I think that's really what I always try to say at the beginning is like, don't listen to this and think, I've achieved success as a mom and as an entrepreneur because something that's been handed or I grew up in that home. So, by the grace of God is what I can say. I've made it here today. So, I just try to live each day, enjoy the opportunity that's presented in front of me, and hopefully pour into someone else and encourage them to do the same.
Well, so Amber, I'm just going to go to the fact that you said you were a single mom living in government housing, and here you
Mhm.
are today, this extremely successful by all the world standards woman who also has a family. How
Mhm.
did you get like what kind of mindset? Where did you invest? You probably didn't even have money to
Yep.
invest when we think traditionally
Yep.
about what investing means. Like, how did you go from that space to even the next level? Not even where you are now, to
Yeah.
the next level.
So, when I was a single mom, there was nothing that was off the table. Like I was a makeup artist for Estee Lauder. I was working at the gym. I'd worked three jobs. I was a hustler, but I always was committed to creating a life for my daughter Sable that was going to be better than I just knew I could do better. I didn't know how I was going to do it, but I knew I was going to do it. And in 2008, when I got into the mortgage business, it was right before the run up. So literally, I was right there when the mortgage industry was, the housing market was booming, and I really took advantage of that. It's actually where I met my husband, and we rode that ride together. And so that was like the first tipping point was getting into the mortgage world. It took very little entry. I had a friend who referred me. And once I saw I could do that, then when the mortgage industry crashed completely, what I recognized was, and I think this is on purpose, Cami, and it's a very important part of my story, is that I believe when God takes us to the lowest of places, if we can really look in that low place, a lot of times that's where the greatest opportunities come from. And so when we lost everything in the mortgage business, filed bankruptcy, did all these things, I mean, I can remember Ryan looking at me and thinking, he said, I think I'm just going to get a job at Home Depot. And I'm like, listen, I'm not going to work at Home Depot. I'll tell you that right now. But what we can do is what we recognize is that people were taking out all the equity in their homes, to pay off credit card debt. So when the mortgage industry crashed, it left this gaping opportunity.
Mm.
And while I had no idea how we were going to pull it off, I knew I had a good idea. And I knew that we could rally the right people to build something out of our distress. And that's the key. What we just experienced with bankruptcy, I never wanted people to go through again. So, out of the place of helping others avoid what I had to personally experience, within a year, we built a multi-million dollar company helping individuals across the country with credit card debt. And so I always say, when you hit your lowest in whatever area of life it is, and that's happened a few times for me, look at it as a huge opportunity because if you're walking through it, it's really, really bad. I promise you, others have been there too. And sometimes I think that's where God gives us our greatest vision for the future.
What I love that you're saying is I interviewed another gal who said her greatest hardship is what built her superpower. And that's kind of what you're
Yep.
saying, you know, like your
Spot
innovation
on.
came out of your greatest pain point, you know. Um,
Yes. Yes.
so okay, so before we get to that a little bit more, tell me about Amber. Like, did you always want to have kids? Did you always want
Yeah.
to have a career? Like, when you were a young girl, who did you dream about being?
Yeah, so growing up, I was in a private school my whole life. I was actually probably the biggest rebel as far as a child. I got kicked out of private schools. I was not a rule follower. I was always bucking the system. I knew right and wrong, but I just didn't take what people said as face value. I always kind of went against the grain.
Okay.
Okay. I have kids like that now too, and it is not easy. Let me tell you, was not easy. So the truth is that I was always bucking the system. I really didn't see myself sitting in college classes. So navigating life was always a challenge. But as a kid, I always wanted to be a teacher. I thought that's what I was going to do. But at the same time, I was always the kid that could negotiate anything at a very young age.
Hmm.
I attracted certain situations. Like I can remember something came to me that sounds so silly, but we had got this car. My dad had bought this car. And I remember we were in a drive-through and I was digging down in the back where the seat belts are and literally just pulling out $100 bills out of it was like money was just easily I attracted it. And so at a very young age, I was like, okay, I can do this. And I can remember things happening at a young age to where I felt like I could attract wealth, I could attract money. And it is a mindset. I can remember spending every single weekend as a kid. I was going through the phone book looking what limo service I wanted to use that weekend because I wanted to ride around in a limo. This is like in the third and fourth grade. I mean, this is how I thought.
You do know what I'm thinking of right now. Who is your youngest, or who's your son that does the stock trading and stuff?
Connor. Connor.
Connor.
And
Oh
Connor's
my
the
gosh.
same exact way. I mean, I told you at 3, he had his own office. He wore a suit jacket. He was downstairs. If you walked in our house, he would take your keys and your phone. Everybody that walked in our house. And it wasn't because he just wanted to hold it. It was because he was probably trying to take it apart and put it back together again and figure it all out. It's just, I think sometimes we grow up, and this is a really important piece too. We grow up in a family and we think we have to live exactly the same way and there's no better. This is how it's going to be for me when I grow up. And that is something that I think is so powerful because for me at a young age, I grew up in just a normal home. We weren't wealthy, but in my mind, I used to say in third and fourth grade, I'm going to be riding around in a limo every weekend. I told myself that at a very young age. So I knew I could do whatever it took to get to where I needed to be, but it was all up here.
Mm.
It's all up here. But at the same thing, I see a lot of women that I come in contact with that they really believe they're supposed to turn out just like they saw their parents, or they're supposed to live from paycheck to paycheck like they saw in their home. And that makes me so sad because I do think that a lot of where it starts is right up in our heads of what we tell ourselves we're capable of. And for me, every single year as I grew up, I mean, there was nothing that was off limits. And it wasn't that I was chasing the dollar, by the way. This is what's interesting for me. What drove me is I wanted to make a difference in the world. I wanted to make a difference. And so whether it was a cupcake store or I opened a gym or I had gas stations or whatever it was, Shop Jackie, clothing, I wanted to make people feel like $1 million. And so every single business that I've ever laid my hands in is from the space of because I wanted people to feel great about themselves. They were always smiling when they came in to get a cupcake. They loved losing weight when I had a gym. They loved the idea, even at gas stations with the employees, like making a little more boutique style to where it was different than a normal gas station. And I loved helping the people that work there. So For me, it's that underlying theme of I wanted people to feel like $1 million. So every business I do, that's kind of what I like to do for others. And I like helping people.
So I just had the opportunity to be on a call with you the other day. You were working with a couple that I had brought to you. So I do real estate on the side. And this is a couple that is also beginning to work in the world of real estate, but they've also come into some serious hardship financially.
Yeah.
And so the thing that you're really focused on right now is helping people pay off debt, right?
Yes. So for me, my passion lies around the debt world.
Yeah. I'm not fully aware of even how that all works yet, or even what that looks like to go from A to Z when they work with you
Yeah.
to help pay off their debt. But I was able to bring in a couple who had come into some hardship and had some serious challenges around debt. And I'm just going to say
Mhm.
this for those of you listening right now, the minute we start talking about budgeting, the minute we start talking about debt, the minute we all start going, like we're almost like sinking down in our seats because immediately our shortcomings in the world of finances start really taking a toll. There's so much
Mhm.
shame around money. And the one thing that I heard them say about being on that call with you the other day, Amber, and I'm super grateful because I work really hard to be somebody that people can talk about their finances with because it's such
Yeah.
a taboo, shame,
Yeah.
um, painful thing for people to talk about. And so, number one, it was
That's
really
right.
cool to be on that call because you made them feel comfortable. You took away the shame aspect of that, and you were really able to just really get to the heart of the matter and talk about just the debt that they were facing, how they got there, and how we're going to matter of factly build new habits, get out of debt, and what that's going to look like. Not like, oh, let me paint you this perfect picture of how you get out of debt. No, it's hard. It's hard. It's painful. It sucks. There's a
Yeah.
reason there's shame around money. Nobody wants to have money troubles. But you just had a heart for it that brought, I don't know, less shame, I guess, to it. I don't know. You know what I'm talking
Yeah. I
about.
mean,
I was just a fly on that
I yeah, no, I think it's when you've been there yourself, you have the capacity to create space for someone else to share. And so because I've been there before, we filed bankruptcy, I lost everything, and that's the space in which I had created life after debt. It allows for individuals to feel comfortable sharing. Probably one of the most taboo topics is finances. You can go to lunch with a bunch of girlfriends, and I've actually tested this. And you can say, "How are you?" And they'll be like, "Great, everything's good." And I said, "No, how are you really? How are you really?" And as soon as you say, "How are you really?" watch how different everybody responds. Because it's actually saying, "I actually see that when you responded, it's not really, you're not great, but how are you really?" And then they'll talk. Or I'll say, "Hey, how much credit card debt are you guys carrying right now? Could you pass the salt?" And watch what happens.
part.
Because as soon as you make someone uncomfortable about it, if they're getting uncomfortable, it's not because they don't want to talk about it. They're hoping it gives them freedom. I always tell people on clarity calls, if you can share it, just know you're going to walk away from this call feeling like the weight of the world, you just dumped your backpack off because it carries so much shame and guilt in that backpack that once you share it, it loses its power over you. And that's really the case with anything. And so, my objective with Life After Debt, doing clarity calls with individuals, is to create a space so that they can literally share without zero shame or guilt everything that they're experiencing, but more importantly, where they want to be financially, so I can curate a plan to help them get there. And honestly, there's enough people in the industry that are shaming and guilting and telling you not to go out to eat and don't go get coffee. And I don't even like the word budget. I don't use it with my people. I don't like it because I believe that's you're putting a lid on what God is capable of doing for you. So I don't use it. I don't live by a budget. I know if I want to live a certain way, I'm going to make it happen. But I also know that you have to go into it with the mindset of being very clear about where you are and being very clear about where you want to be. And I can walk people right to it.
Okay, so I want you to talk a little bit more about this. What made you so passionate? You kind of touched on this in the beginning of our call. that it was like a pain point for you. You declared bankruptcy, you went through some hardship in the area of finances. But now that you're not hurting financially, what keeps you passionate about this? What makes you want to go out there and make a difference in this area?
The reason I love doing this is because if you look at the people that are in this situation, 90% of the world, do you know what they say about them? They say, well, they were irresponsible with their money. They weren't good with their money. And I am living proof that it's you don't find yourself in the situation because quote unquote you were necessarily bad with your money. For myself, we found ourselves in that situation because my husband and I were both mortgage brokers. So when the industry tanked, when they decided that they were no longer lending on one day in 2008, we had closings lined up. We had all the houses, the nanny, everything. It's not like we could turn our life off overnight. So we were forced to walk into a bankruptcy because of the industry collapsing. And it was then that it dawned on me that not everybody who's in financial distress is there because of poor decisions they made. It's life circumstances, whether it's a medical crisis that a family experiences, or whether a husband, I talk to so many wives where husbands have walked out on them and left them with all this debt, and they have never even had a job.
Mm.
Like, that's hard stuff. So they're not always in this situation because they're not good with money or they've spent on things they don't need. That is just the worst thing you could possibly think or say.
Mm.
Most of the people I talk to, I would say 75% of them are there because of outside circumstances that have gotten them to this place. So that's where my heart is for people.
Well, and one of the things you did on the call the other day, which I didn't know what to expect, you had told me if you have anybody that you know that has serious debt, that's what we do. That's how we help. And I had somebody call me the other day with more debt than I'd ever known anybody to have. And I didn't have vocabulary like, oh, that's a hardship, or that's not because you're bad at spending money, or you know, just some different things you said. I thought, oh, that's so powerful. But it truly was a hardship. Something had happened in their life that had caused, like you said, whether it's medical debt. Oh, the amount of women I speak to now that the hardship is they've been doing IVF. And
Yeah.
some people might not think that's a hardship. For a woman who wants children and hasn't been able to have children, that is one of the most painful. I just can't even. I'm someone who had children and wanted more, and that not having more felt like you were ripping out my soul, you know? And so I think God used that today to help me to move me into this position of in the foster world. But all that to say, I do think that's a hardship. And not everybody has the money for the, what do you call it? The elective health, because
Yeah,
it's not even
that's
covered
right.
by insurance or whatever. And so immediately puts people into a position that they never intended to be in. So I say all that to say one of my favorite things that you used on that call was, even while we're considering paying off debt, even while we're talking about how we're going to consolidate debt, you said, let's build some good habits. Let's build some
Yeah.
new neural pathways in regards to finances. And you were like, open a high yield save. Like, I just loved how you were
Yeah.
like investing in their future while they're trying to fix what's gone on in the past, you know?
Well, yeah, and that's a really good point of differentiation between myself and what we do at Life After Debt and other companies is that there's a lot of people who would love to sit down and put you in a box, which is the word budget. No, while we're getting you out of debt, let's flip your financial script. And that's something we do at Life After Debt is we look and say, where can we start? And it's less about the amount and more about the new habit you're putting into place. You know, a high yield savings account is going to pay you 4.5%, which is higher than any other savings account out there. And if you simply just set it up, I don't care if it's just $10 you're putting into it. It's less about the amount and more about the habit of it going in there and you not touching it and seeing if you can actually do it. I do this with a lot of people, and I always say, before you go to use a penny in that, send me an email, and I'll let you know if that's an emergency or not. And so getting so in people's world that it makes them proud of themselves when they can accomplish it for a year without touching it. You know, I always live like I wake up every single day, Cami, if I'm being honest, like I'm at zero, like I'm broke. And I actually have this saying, and my team knows this. It's called IWOB. Okay. IWOB, IWOB. It's actually AB, IWOB. It's called If I Were a Bum, right? And I function out of this space of like, if I were a bum today, where would I go eat? And what would I do? And like when I know if like things have free meals, in my mind, I'm at zero every day. And it's not because I am, but it's because I want that hustle inside of me, or I want to make a decision that day that lines up with where I want to be and where I want to stay. I don't want to constantly assume because everything is cyclical. Easy come, easy go. I do not by any like way think that everything is a permanent. I've seen so many businesses go up and down and up and down. And so every single day I look at it through the lens of, all right, I'm at ground zero. What am I going to do today to make an impact on my financial future? And that is how you build true wealth.
Oh, that's great. I like if I were a bum, what would I do? No, there's some things happening with my own children right now that I'm like, y'all need to know what it's like to have to live like a bum so that
Yeah,
we don't
yeah.
take some of these things for granted so much. Okay. So let's take it back a little bit because you were telling us a little bit about how you kind of broke the mold and you didn't go the status quo, but when did you always want to be a mom or not necessarily?
Oh, great question. Yeah, it's interesting because I was the oldest of four
Oh my
in my family. And so I was like,
goodness.
I thought maybe I would have kids, but honestly, it's not something that I dreamed of having five kids. Never in a million years. Maybe two I envisioned for myself. But once you have three, you could have 10. I
Mhm,
think for me, the hardest part was reconciling having so many kids and being a successful entrepreneur and working outside of the home. I think as moms, and especially successful moms, you don't fit in the courtyard at school. Sorry, you just don't. And you got to be okay with that. And so my personality, I'm completely fine with not fitting in, but it is hard to find your spot in that environment. But one thing I can say about it, Cami, and I know you can agree, I was more committed to my kids seeing what was possible and you could be great in every single arena than I cared what Sally's mom thought about me in the courtyard at school. So the truth is now as I watch my kids grow up and develop, and they're all, for the most part, they all are very already successful entrepreneurs. And honestly, my biggest thing was I wanted them to see that you actually can do it all. You could have five kids, you could have 10 kids, you could have zero kids, you could be a successful mom, you could be a successful entrepreneur. There's nothing off limits and there's no mold that you have to fit into. It
mhm,
looks different to everyone, but you have to let go of the stigma of caring what other people think or what they might say about it. And
mm,
especially family members, by the way.
mm. Especially family members, by the way. Talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, I mean, I probably grew up around on both sides, family members who thought, oh, she is not a good mom if she's in the office every single day, and she is not dot, dot, dot. But I'll tell you, I think it actually made me a better mom. I appreciated the time when I was with my kids, and I saw were like, and still are, like, they were proud of their mom.
Mhm,
These kids, even now, they'd rather hang out with me and bring their friends around me to pick my brain. And like, so there are elements about it to where when I would have family members say that about me, at first it stings. It's like, well, first of all, I can do it all. So just sit back and watch, sweetie. I'm going to do this. But then at the same time, it's like it plays in the back of your head like a tape. I
mhm.
don't want to fail at this. I don't want to be a bad mom. I can do this all. And I just think you have to show yourself grace. You have to show yourself grace in every season as a mom and as a business owner trying to juggle it all. But you know what? I think we're the hardest on ourselves, truly. And
Totally.
as soon as you can recognize that, it kind of like everything melts away and everything works out exactly the way it should. It just does.
Even the Bible says that Jesus wasn't welcomed in his own hometown. So when you said that about especially your family, the person in my life who I believe I got the hard wiring from to be driven and fiercely passionate about pursuing purpose and life change and just all the things in the world that needed to be different. is the same person that says to me, "You're trying to do too much." And it's funny how the same person who can drive you is also the same person who can
Yeah,
stomp on you,
that's
right? And
a great
I say
point.
that I say that because there's just so many voices trying to tell you you can't do, you can't be, and even as women, like we'll get into this in a minute. I want to be careful. There's just so many things that are running through my head right now based on what you just said, but um it is hard. It is hard to stay focused on what you're supposed to do. And in my world, I am trying to do too many things, hands down.
Hmm.
Maybe we need to
Yeah,
create a new word, not high achievers, but we're mavens. Like we're mavens. We're changing the game, you know, like
yeah,
we're
yeah,
specialties in all these things, and that's okay. And you can do both. I have literally had
totally.
people say to me, you can't do all that. There's no way you can do all that. No, I will not hire you for this because you're fostering, you are a parent, and you think you're going to be successful in the career. No, those are the reasons why I'm the person you want to pick, because I've learned how to
Right.
juggle all those things. And I'm the person that is going to create solutions, not excuses. So, with
Yeah.
all that said, tell me when you get burnout, because you are doing too much and you are operating at a level that most people don't function at a regular basis. What do you do when you realize you're at capacity or you're about to burn out or break?
So I'm an ambivert, which I'm not an introvert, I'm not an extrovert. An ambivert's someone who is like, I honestly have to have time to for downtime by myself and like, but if I'm in business conversations or business worlds, I'm like a complete extrovert there. So when I have downtime, I do not let anything disturb that. I'm very big about that because it keeps me balanced. I'm really big about downtime. The second thing is, and I'll tell you, I do believe this is a chip that a lot of people who are juggling multiple things have to have, and it's discipline. And so self-care for me is probably I think one of the biggest pillars of my success. I try to really invest in myself first and foremost so I can love the people around me the right way, so I can lead the right way in business, so my energy, my health is in line. And I always say the same chip for exercising and self-care, that is the success chip. So if you can do it there for yourself, then it shows the world that you care enough to take care of yourself that, yeah, heck yeah, she can do this, or heck yeah, she can take this on. And I just think it opens up your capacity if you're the best version of yourself to juggle as many things as you possibly could, but knowing the right things to say no to. Like now I just get to a place to where people are your most valuable asset. And so when I create a business, I really go in guns blazing, create it. But when I start to build out the team, I'm very particular about the people because if I can extract and insert the right people, then it allows me the space to breathe again. And then I go into the next thing. And then I go into the next thing. I love to create, right? But it's getting the right people to continue the vision so that I then can breathe. I've learned that's a big skill I've had to learn though, because I used to have to want to have my hands in everything. And then I got to the place where I had to tell myself, if I can bring someone on who can do 75% of what I can do, it's a win-win because it now just freed 100% of Amber to go do the right thing, right? So you have to really be particular about the people that you bring in.
Mm, that's good. All right, so now let's talk about. So you said the thing about family. As a woman, I've noticed I've had incredible women in my life that build me up, pour into me, encourage me. And then I've had women that it's like they can't wait to tear you down, and they can't wait to, even like what you said in the playground, right? You're not always going to get along with every traditional mom, if you will. So I say
Yeah.
that to say, how do you find the right people to be around when you are a high achieving woman that also is wildly passionate about what's going on at home?
This is a great question. You could actually do a whole conversation just around this question. Um, But one of the things my mentor said to me, and he told me this when we launched the company back in 2008. He said, Amber, I just want you to know, I want you to prepare yourself because it's very lonely at the top. And I was like, what are you talking about? It's not lonely. It's going to be great, And I never understood that. And as we grew and our company grew and we became one of the largest companies out there and we were just doing so well in life. I felt it. It was like, oh wow, everybody is like hates you and turns against you, and your people who you thought were your friends are ready to stab you in the back and just all this stuff. But for me personally, I am somebody who pretty much like I walk alone a lot. I stay in my comfort zone. I don't require multiple friendships. However, they say you're like the five people you surround yourself with, the five closest people to you. Look at them, and wherever they are, that's where you're going to be in life. Period. End of story. It is so true. So I reach, and I say that word not lightly. I reach to establish and get people in my world that I want to be more like, who can mentor me, that I soak up what they're doing, how they're living, what they're reading. It's people so out of my scope, like so far greater than myself, so that it constantly keeps me in the zone and saying, okay, you know what? I have acquaintances, but I really lay low. And I don't cultivate friendships and I don't bring people in my world very easily. And it's not because I don't like people. It's because I'm protective of my space, I'm protective of my peace. And quite frankly, Cami, you know this, girls are relentlessly vicious. And it's sad, but it's true. I think, for me, I've always had male business partners. I don't my brain probably functions more like a male than a female anyways when it comes to just how I approach life in general. So it's very hard for me to relate with a lot of female mindsets. So you just have to know who your people are. At the end of the day, it's the best way for me to summarize it. You know who your people are, go with your gut, and don't feel like just because you're acquaintances with someone that you have to let them in your world 100%. You just don't.
Mm-mm. No. And I love what you said about influence because, yes, we are the five people we spend the most time with. But one thing I like to talk about is influence isn't passive. And so I'm not saying you can't hang out with somebody that you want to invest in and pour into because I think we should all be doing that. As a matter of fact, I think it's a responsibility as women who are um, successful, chasing their dreams, but also raising a family. I think it's a responsibility for us to pour into the next group of women doing the same thing. But I do think we have to be careful because there's a difference between pouring into people and allowing influence. Influence isn't passive. And so we can say, well, we're going to be the one influencing them. That's not always the case. It's just like you
That's right.
can. Have you ever done one of those experiments where you put food coloring in a jar and then you put a flower in the jar? What happens to the flower? It takes on the properties of that food coloring. I don't care who
Yeah,
you are and where your mindset is, the environment you find yourself spending the majority amount of your time is you are going to take on characteristics of that environment. And so if it's
so good.
oh, I mean, I don't care who you are. Like you have to protect that. And the one question I've had the most, especially whether it's coaching high achievers or just being around other successful people, is where do we level up our circle? Where do we get those people from? And as women, I think we have to be careful because for some reason, we're already competing in a man's world in a lot of ways, especially if we're just driven. We women attack each other. And I don't know why we do that
I
instead of
know.
building each other up and encouraging each other. I can't wait to find another woman
Yeah.
who is passionate about business or entrepreneur things that is also raising a family that I can say, yes, you can. You can do both. It
Yeah.
is possible. I've
Yeah.
done it. You can do it too. Instead, I find people just tearing each other up more times than not. And it breaks my heart.
Yeah, and you have to understand too, when you understand the space which it's coming from, obviously there's a lot of jealousy rooted there. There's a lot of insecurity rooted there. It almost allows you to see them through the lens of compassion. And so it doesn't land on you. Like that's the thing. I try to tell women, don't let things land on you that have no business. Their perspective of you or whatever they had to say to make themselves feel better. I've seen this happen 100 times in my life, but he always prepares a table in the presence of your enemies. And I want you to think about that when God says that in the Bible, like it truly says, he's going to prepare a table in the presence of your enemies. So don't give time, attention, bandwidth mentally to anything that anyone is saying. Stay in your lane, keep going, and watch where he's taking you and what table you will be sitting at, because they're all going to have to watch too. And that has happened, I can tell you, at least 100 times in my life. So I never have to look backwards or feel like I have to try to figure out why XYZ is saying all these things about me. Quite frankly, I don't even give it any thought. It doesn't matter. That's great. Let her. Great. Good for her. And cheer her on anyways, by the way. You don't even have to say anything. Just cheer them on.
It makes me think of Mel Robbins and her let them theory, right? But again,
Yes.
they can try to tear you up, but why not build them up and leave them better than how you found them? That's always
Yeah.
been my mantra. All right.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, because I know we're at the end of our time here. It went so fast. What is something you are the most proud of as a woman who has 5 children, married 20 something years, you said 20 plus years,
Me
and
too. Mhm.
and obviously had many successful businesses. You've had some trials. What is something you're most proud of?
Probably the thing I'm most proud of is my ability to go against the grain, but do it with love and compassion. And when I say that, what I mean is I'm okay with standing up and saying yes in a room where everyone would say no. And I have had no fear in doing that. And I think that's the thing I'm most proud of is that there was nothing that was off the table for me. I'm not scared of anything. I think when you have Christ inside of you and when you're filled with the Spirit, you walk differently. And so just being able to continue to walk out my purpose is what I'm most proud of. And obviously, my goal in life is to leave some type of legacy. Like, I just want people and I want to be remembered by, oh my gosh, I can remember when Amber helped me with X, or I can remember when she helped me launch my business, or I can remember when she helped us with our debt. The word help is like my underlying theme. That's what I feel like God's given me my purpose is to help others, period. And so insert the company. I think just that's what I'm the most proud of, that I've seen myself be able to walk that out fully and want to continue to do that. So, and my kids, obviously watching your kids take on some of those characteristics, my son, they're all very great at what they do, but the one that has been super successful, watching him go up to homeless people and just hand them $200 or tell the clerk inside 7-Eleven, hey, could you just grab a bunch of food and take it out for all those people? Like, I'm not telling him to do that. And most of the time, I don't even know he's doing it. But that's his heart because that's what he's seeing in me. And I think those are the moments where you feel the most proud. It makes everything that you're doing worthwhile and recognize that, yeah, man, had he not seen me as a businesswoman and as a mom and nurturing of those and as a spiritual, that being my driving force and my spiritual grounding, he's kind of gotten it all together now and is carrying it forward. So, those are those proud moments you have occasionally with your kids. So,
Well,
yeah.
the one thing I was just going to say to you is I'll never forget when I was first getting to know you, there was this like intimidation factor because you're this very successful woman in business and you do just kind of beat to a you are a part of something and you just kind of don't really care what's going on around you. You're just doing your thing. You are one of the kindest, most loving, humble, not better than, walked through a lot of life yourself. And I think that's the one thing it was like almost as intimidated as I was about meeting you, was almost as big as how much I felt hugged by you and welcomed by you the second I met you. That's an incredible gift. And if I could encourage
Oh,
any,
that's quite sweet.
well, it's true. And so for you to
No,
have this,
but I think the same of you, by the way. I think that, a lot of times in business, especially for you and I, who we have experienced a level of success, even alphas can tend to look at each other like, I'm never talking to that person, or I don't, I never knew you, but I could sense when we met, it was almost like, oh my gosh, we have so much in common, and it's so nice just to be Amber and be Cammy, and we don't have to have all this stuff or what we've accomplished. I think we could authentically show up for each other. So just so you know, it's reciprocal. I felt the same with you, and just that bond of two kind people showing up as Amber and Cami interacting, it's powerful, and it's refreshing. It's refreshing.
well, and that's what I want to like, that's almost kind of what I want to leave this call with today is for those of you that are at the beginning of this journey for yourself. Maybe you're wildly driven and you're still trying to figure out what that looks like, or you have all this passion and purpose inside of you, or you want to accomplish all these things and you're not quite sure how you're going to do it yet. Or maybe you're juggling the kids and you've got the work life and you're just like, how does this all happen? Don't hesitate to go up to someone like Amber or myself because we recognize women that are really in this fight. We do. Like you see
Yeah.
it. There's no, I don't know, there's just something real and raw about women that are doing this, and there's just like
Mhm.
a camaraderie almost out of it. So don't let, like, I'm so glad I didn't let what I thought of Amber keep me from going and meeting Amber, because yes, she was all those things, but she was incredibly down to earth, very personable, would give me anything. Like nothing that was hers, she was unwilling to share, no matter who I was, even if I was a bum. But that's what I'm saying is we recognize other women who are in the fight that we're in. And so I would just say if you're looking for someone like that in your circle, don't be afraid to approach the ones that you think might be intimidating, and you'll know if they're not your person because it just won't work.
Yeah, and I want to add something, Cami, and this is just to speak to what you do. And I know you didn't ask me to say this, but one of the things I will say also, and even about everything that you do for other people, I think some of one of the hardest things for women, successful women, or those who have ideas and just don't know where to go, and they're hesitating reaching out to you with what you're doing in your coaching world is asking for help.
Mm.
And I just want to say that I think that you do a great job of creating a space for people to not only ask for help and you're very receiving of it, but you're full of wisdom to be able to show up for them and offer them the help that they need to get to where they want to go. And so if there are women watching this, that's a really important thing you need to hear is that not everybody can create that space for you to ask for help and receive it, but you do a great job of that, Cami. I know that's why you're successful at your business and coaching others. But that asking for help is a huge, once you give people permission to do that, they do. They just, it's like a breath of fresh air to be able to unload that. So for those of you watching, reach out to Cami for help because I'm telling you, she's like got it right there on a silver platter for you.
One of the things I love about when you and I meet, Amber, is when we download maybe something we're walking through and you're like, holy shnikes, that's awful. And then you're like, yeah, well, I can one up that even. And not from
Yeah,
a place of like one up, but like from a place of like, what are we gonna do and how are we gonna keep moving forward? But this is
right. This is life, one day at a time.
that's right. Well, Amber, thank you so much for being here with us. And y'all, Amber Duncan, Life After Debt. If debt is something you're facing, she is the woman that you want to get a clarity call with. I can promise you this: money and all things money are hard. You may not have had it. You may have always had it, but still not known what to do with it. Nothing, no matter what, where you've come from, no matter what you've been through, none of that is going to determine the help that you're going to receive from this woman and the team that she has put together. And so I just want to throw that out there because this is something that Amber has a ton of experience with, and not many places out there to go unless you're going to get on the Dave Ramsey plan. But I just feel like that's a diet that nobody can live on. So that's just my personal experience. And
Yeah, I mean, yeah, not everybody's in a position to stuff an envelope. So if you do find that you do need help, you can visit my website, reducemydebts.com, and you can book a clarity call there. So I'm happy to help. It's free. The clarity call is absolutely free. It's 15 minutes, but I promise you'll leave the call feeling better. So
I love it. Thanks for your time, Amber. I love you.
thanks, Cami. I enjoyed being on. Y'all have a good day.